Okay. So this is an In Conversation series, and I talked to Chris about coming and speaking. He was like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. What do you want me to talk about? And I was like, let me just interview you so we can get the questions all right on there. So for those of you that don't know, Chris Kentis has got 3 feature films under his belt: Grind, Open Water, and Silent House. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing. What, feature films, is it like giving birth?
It's, yeah, let's just say I think it's hard to make any kind of film, even a short, so you might as well go all the way.
Go all the way, exactly. Okay, so to get you guys into the mood, we're going to start with showing you the trailer for Open Water. So we're going to take it away, and let's make sure that volume is up because it's pretty intense.
Other people go on vacations and spend their days just laying around. We have a story we're going to be telling for the rest of our lives.
Daniel, where's the boat?
That's a good question.
We are stuck in the middle of the ocean. Oh, God. Oh.
It's okay. It's okay. This can't be happening. Susan! Susan!
Oh, God, something's rubbing against my foot. Are you all right? No, stay still. It's gonna be okay.
Coming soon, that was 2003.
Yes, wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, congratulations on making a classic, if not a cult classic, shark film. I was 10 years old, spending my summers in Bradley Beach, New Jersey, when Jaws came out. And to say it was a phenomenon, and it scared really the crap out of all of us being on the beaches. So that's why I'm a huge fan of Open Water. It taps into the primordial fear that sharks in a hostile environment, and yet it's a shark movie. Vastly different than what we had seen before, really until that moment in 2003. I think shark movies were really defined by that other shark movie that came out in 1977. So I have to ask you the question, why did you make that film? And was that other shark movie by Spielberg factoring into your vision?
Oh, yeah. I mean, no surprise. I'm a massive fan of that ever since I saw it as a child as well, and had a huge impact on me. And kind of fostered a love of the ocean. I became, a recreational scuba diver, and I spent a lot of time in the water. And so it was a lot of factors kind of coming together about why we made the movie, because in that period of time, there was a movement going on called Dogma 95, a Danish movement where Lars von Trier and Thomas Vinterberg were making movies with prosumer cameras. And it kind of blew my mind that it was the first time I saw very powerful movies being made with equipment that was accessible to anybody, as opposed to having to work with, a large crew. But what I also understood is that for a film to work shot in that format, there needs to be a pairing of the aesthetic of the equipment you're using with the subject matter and how you're telling the story. I mean, if you're not going to tell Star Wars with one of those cameras, or maybe someday someone will, I don't know. But at any rate, so another factor with Jaws is I was always haunted by the whole story Quint tells about the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. And so it just kind of all came together that I wanted to do a film, a kind of a no-budget film using this equipment, inspired by what these other people were doing. And subject matter-wise, it was like a way of kind of doing the Indianapolis story in miniature and for no money, and it also combined with my love of the ocean, my love of scuba diving, and I was lucky enough to have had dove with sharks before, so I understood what that meant, that we could do this and pull it off and do it in a very safe way.
Now, Open Water was shot on Sony VX2000 PD150.
Yeah.
Using tape, no memory
Yeah,
cards.
no, none of that existed then, yeah.
And of course, these cameras were sourced and purchased at B&H Photo.
Of course
Thank you
they
very
were.
much.
Of course, thank you, no, of course they were, yes, yeah.
Tell us about how you chose that production equipment and what advantages the more portable prosumer cameras afforded you.
Well, it was very easy to choose the equipment because at the time, it was basically those two cameras and the Canon camera, and the Canon one didn't have underwater housing. So it's not like today where you really have to scratch your head and think about it. I mean, it's fantastic because whatever specific things you need, there's a piece of equipment that can get you there today, and often a very affordable one. So that was how the equipment was chosen. And I'm sorry, the next part of the question?
The next part was what advantages did that more portable?
Oh,
I mean, you
we
weren't
could not have
bringing
made-
big RE rigs and all that.
We could not have made open water without it. There was no crew. It was like the two actors and producer Laura Lau and a couple family members and a boat captain. And it was because we were so nimble that we were able to pull this shoot off because it was very, very tricky. And if you had a large crew and a lot of people, I mean, it just would have cost a heck of a lot more. And I don't think you would have gotten that sense of immediacy that I think is one of the advantages of one of the things we're after in the film.
So not counting marketing for the film, what was the budget for production?
It was $120,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, 2000.
And that was all our own savings and money, and it was definitely betting the farm, and there was a lot of.
How did that feel?
Well, like 2 days in, I'm like, why didn't somebody stop me? What did I do? Please.
It sort of sounds like going into a Vegas casino and just put it all on black.
Yeah. Well, you're putting it all on yourself, so it's and there's days you wish you didn't, and there's days you're very happy you did.
How long did the whole production take?
Well, it took I'd guess days-wise, maybe it was like 25, but it was spread out over a period of time because the lead actor, Daniel Travis, well, I was working at the time. The other thing I do is in film marketing. I produce and edit trailers and things, and I did this back in that time too. And so we were shooting the film on weekends and when I had days off, and actually I didn't even tell anybody I was working on the film. So you'd go out for long weekends and vacation time, so it was never, I think maybe once or twice I get a long stretch of a week where I took some time off. But then the lead actor was playing volleyball or something here in New York, nothing to do with the film, and had a knee injury, and we had to wait a year before we could get back behind the camera. And so production-wise,
continuity on that?
Well, this is the beauty of the film that I was very aware of going in. They're in one costume, and you're in the ocean. And continuity was not so much an issue. It was a matter of them just making sure they looked the same, which wasn't too difficult, and their hair and everything else. But it did buy me the time to really edit and rethink and really look at the footage, waiting until Daniel was able to get back out there, because it was a very strenuous shoot. It looks like they're just floating in the water, but they're off at the back of a boat, and they had to be tied up, you can't see underneath, so that they didn't drift away because the currents were so strong, and even then they were constantly kicking to remain upright, because otherwise it would be like the current would have them drag backwards. So even though it doesn't look like they're just sitting there, it was a real workout for them.
Here we have some BTS, if we could switch to the computer feed. I love that. So speaking about being in the water, is this the famous incident in the shark cage?
Oh no, that's just that's me with. Well, we did all the shark shoot, all the main shark shooting in the first couple days of shooting the film, because it was going to be much easier to match action to what we could get with the sharks and expect the sharks to do what was needed, and that was the toughest part of the shoot. So that's me in the water with the sharks, and what they did, we worked with a fantastic guy, Stuart Cove, who worked on, I don't know, countless, and he basically, up until the CGI age, I mean, every movie that ever had a shark in it, Stuart was involved, and we knew we were working with the best, and it was going to be very safe. and so the way it basically worked, the thing that we wanted to do that was very different is every film I ever saw involving sharks up until this period of time, you'd see them underwater. And I never found that terribly frightening. And also maybe because I've spent time with them underwater, but I had an experience during one of my dives where one kind of surprised me on the surface. It's much more unnerving. And the key to the film working, I think a lot of films working, is really embracing point of view and whose point of view, and the point of view of the character. And so the idea was to tell the story strictly through the point of view of these two characters and only experience it. Because so much, I think what really makes things frightening when you're in the water, and I think most people feel this, is when you're in deep water and you just don't know what's underneath you, and you just have this feeling like, and that's something we were trying to play up, but anyway, this shot here was one of the later days. After we had gotten some work done with the actors, I needed some sharks coming at the camera and threw a lot of bait in the water. And as you can see, I got a little in over my head there with a little feeding frenzy going on. But I love it. I mean, I love that stuff. So I had a blast.
Filmmaking is pain, getting with those sharks. That's insane. So no robotic sharks. You were liberated from that.
Well, the whole point was that we wanted to give people a different cinematic experience, because as a child, pick any movie and you'd see, a car chase or anything that happens and you'd say, how did they do that? Someone did that. There was a driver. And we're living in a time now where I don't feel like any visuals really get that same kind of rise of excitement out of an audience, because we know it was done on a computer and it looks great and these artists are incredible. But we wanted to, we knew the movie's gonna look crappy, using these cameras, and we had no money. And we wanted people to know these are real sharks and give them that experience of oh my God, these crazy people actually went in there and those are real sharks, and give them that different kind of experience.
Not to knock the Meg.
Yeah.
But the tension that's in open water blows away the Meg.
Thank you.
And maybe the Meg is a comedy. I don't know, is it a...
I haven't seen it. I know many films in the genre are, which is great. I mean,
Sharknado is...
Well, clearly that one. Yeah, I actually haven't...
What has that done for you?
Well, it's nice every year that, because our film's pretty old, and it's nice every year when one of these comes out that we get a little shout out now and then, so.
Yeah, you sent me some press just recently on that. Okay, so Open Water is a tense and fast film with the action taking place in the water. Can you tell us about how difficult that environment was, and what challenges and rewards did you have out of that time in the water?
Well, it was very grueling. It was it was kind of a trial by fire, kind of learn by your mistakes. Because I initially naively really thought, we'll just go 5 feet off the shore, and the actors will kneel down, and I'll have the camera. And so you learn very quickly. Well, it's interesting because first of all, there's the sound of the surf. Mm-hmm. So sound-wise already, that's a problem. Then it's amazing. You don't realize, I started with a rig that my father actually built, this kind of flotation rig, and the camera is just going like this. So we gradually would go out a little deeper and a little deeper and and we finally realized we had to go 20 miles out. We literally had to do the real thing and go 20 miles out and be out there in the open ocean. We had a terrific boat captain who really, he just really knew how to read all the signs and nature and the weather. And so the actors were kind of prepared. They kind of knew the whole script backward and forward, because what was important in the movie too is because you're on the ocean, you're really using Mother Nature, the sky and the sea, and the color palette as they're all part of telling the story, and it has to be a progression. That's not something you take for granted. It was very, very well planned about how it started with kind of bright sunny days and came overcast skies and then blood red skies. And so basically our boat captain would kind of know what the weather was or whatever we got that day, and we said, we're doing this scene. And even though we thought we're coming out in the boat, we're gonna do this scene, look at the weather, we're gonna do this scene instead. So we had to be prepared to make those shifts, and the actors were great.
When the film starts to shift into the nighttime, which by the way, for those who watched it, it really gets creepy at night. because we said before you don't know what's underneath
yeah.
you, and it's night, so now you're isolated. But how did you simulate with neutral density filters or anything, or were you shooting at dusk?
I just shot purely. It was just an overcast day, and I just shot day for night. And then it's funny because the whole lightning storm. What was great about what I love about working in this way with like the prosumer, you just have a camera all the time, and so I'm just always shooting. It's like it doesn't even matter if we're on set. Like, we go back to the hotel or anywhere. I'm just shooting, and there was lightning storms happening all the time, and so it wasn't in the script to have that lightning scene.
Really?
I was in the editing room, like, what am I going to do with this footage? And so it was all just created, just using color correct and just like. In cutting the black, and it was all just kind of created in the editing room because it just seemed to work. So it's one of those serendipitous kind of things that happen if you have an open mind when you approach a shoot.
I was at a gallery one time, and the painter, the informal painter Jean Miat, we're standing in front of a really boring painting. And he looks at it and he shakes his head. He says, "No tension," and that always stuck with me. And then watching Open Water, the tension's amazing, and that leading into that evening, that dusk in the storm. So let's just go to the back to that screen again. I want to show your amazing. Okay, so the couple I found them to be pure perfection. You tap into that natural relationship of disgruntlement that can occur when traveling with your significant other. I love when she kind of turns on him a little bit, like, why did we come here? Except the situation's about as dire as one can get. How did you motivate your actors for those intense scenes?
Well, I didn't have to motivate. Blanchard Ryan and Daniel Travis were they were our partners in making the film, and me and Laura Lau. And I had written a script. I'd written the script very quickly. It poured out of me in like 6 days. And once we were cast, and it was a lengthy casting process, and brought them on, because it was really about finding people who are like-minded, you wanted to work with, who are creative. And so we kind of workshopped it, and I'd write scenes, and a lot of the dialogue they came up with themselves. The relationship they kind of came up with. There were things that we all knew we wanted to kind of explore within this, because so much of the movie, again, like we knew the sharks would be a commercial hook, but it was so much more just about what we take for granted in life and the people we love, and because we just get caught up in other things we think are more important. And then that whole idea of just kind of being forgotten, of just suddenly like you've just been pulled right out of your world, and no one knows who you are, and so these are the things that I find much more frightening than sharks, and those are the things we wanted to explore. But working with Daniel and with Blanchard, Laura, we came up with this together.
It worked. There's one little particular point that always stands out to me. She finds the little piece of candy, which I think we've all found a little caramel in the back of our pocket or in a backpack or whatever, and they're just so happy that they have that little piece of candy. Was that part of your script, or was that organic?
I honestly can't remember. I mean, I think a lot of those little things came from my own diving experiences. And I actually think that one was one of those, because now that I recall, and that's what's interesting to me is it's those. I'm always interested in the little details that you don't normally see in a film. That only once you kind of embed yourself in a certain world and get to know people and get to know how it works. I'm always personally fascinated by the little details and things that come out of that. So.
And the details are what you remember later on. Sometimes that brings out. I'm just going to run a couple more pictures here that we have, and here's your crew.
Well, that was actually the. It's interesting. That was the dive boat. Those are all the people that were on the dive boat. It was really kind of great because what happened is. To cast this, that's the boat we used. That's a dive boat in the film, and that's Laura shooting in the foreground. But I'd gone out to the Bahamas, I don't know, like a month earlier, letting them know I was doing a film and wanting to know, because I wanted to use real dive masters and people to play the parts. And they gave me, and people who were interested came and auditioned, and I chose 3 people, and I thought they were great. And then we got there a month later to shoot, and just 3 other people that I never met before showed up, but they were, and that's how they ended up cast. But they were wonderful. And then, then it's just as far as the Laura's sister, Estelle Lau, I think was able to just drum up in a couple days and get these people who participated to become extras on the boat, and everyone was just great. I mean, everyone just kind of pulled off a wonderful performance. So.
That's the magic. And who's this guy?
Oh, well, that's from Silent House. That's actually
from Silent
Igor Martinovich, who's a fantastic director of photography, and we're very lucky to have him.
Okay, well, we'll save him for later on that. Okay, then that's that. Okay, so I didn't hit you up with this question before. I kind of added it. I recall reading that Peter Benchley, the author of Jaws, regrets the attention it brought to the great white, and it led to a decimation of the species. Do you have any comment on that? Is that any?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that was something very important about in open water. Is for the first time I think it really was for the first time we wanted to properly represent sharks, because every film I'd ever seen, and of course, as we've mentioned, I love Jaws, but it's usually someone falls in the water and boom, the shark goes and kills them, and I just know that's not what sharks are like, and so we wanted to represent their behavior in a very, very accurate way, and these people are in the water for hours and hours, and the sharks couldn't care less, and this is all based on research and speaking with a lot of people who've had the experience of being left at sea, and so we really kind of just wanted to represent them as just another element of nature. Of course, you know, cinematically they're the most sensational element, but they're just another factor in this ordeal.
No, the wait for the inevitable is what I think the tank.
Exactly.
And then you could examine the characters and they really come in.
But as far as, you know, I think thankfully, I guess because of you know, Shark Week and people's interest in all these things, I think that people now have a very different attitude about sharks than they did back in the day, and I think we're all very aware of what an essential part of our ecosystem they are.
Did you achieve all that you wanted to with open water? And if you could go back in time, would you do anything different?
Well, I think anything I make, I would do different. I can't even, but I have no interest in doing that. I'm very grateful that, you know, for whatever reason, it was the right movie at the right time, and we had a lot of success. But every project is a learning experience. And I have no desire to revisit or change that, but maybe take what I learned from that on to the next project.
And did I see an Open Water 2 sequel, something with a boat in it?
There were a couple sequels that I had nothing to do with. Lionsgate, whoever called, you know, negotiated for right. I think those films were actually even completed before they were released as Open Water 2 and Open Water 3, and I had nothing to do with them, and I didn't see them, but I was basically, just as long as there's nothing terribly offensive in them, they can use the name, and so I think they were named after they were made.
Okay, I hope you got a piece of that.
I got a little something.
Okay. Okay. Well, congratulations again for making that film. I think that's just, it's incredible, and having you here is amazing. But wait, there's more.
No, I would say also thank you very much for having me at this very, very cool event. I really appreciate it.
100%. 100%. Okay, so if we can go to the site, we have Silent House is your 2011, I believe?
Yes.
Right, 2011 film. And we talked a little bit about horror, and I'm a big horror fan personally, but you're not a horror director, or?
Well, it's funny, I have nothing against horror at all. I just think it's an incredibly difficult genre, and of course it's kind of like an entry-level genre because they can be made cheaper. But when we made Open Water, I wasn't really thinking genre, and I certainly didn't see it as a horror film. I thought, if anything, it's more of a drama. But it went to Sundance, and we're very lucky to be picked up right away by Lionsgate, and they marketed it in such a way, which was very wise, presenting it as a horror film. And then you get sort of kind of pigeonholed into a certain area. Mm-hmm. And so that's why eventually when there was a lot of projects I was involved with between that and Silent House, but it became clear that if I really just want to get a movie off the ground, I'll just bite the bullet and make a horror film, and Silent House was the first thing to come around that had kind of an interesting concept of this was before, you know, amazing films like Birdman, and all the concept behind Silent House was the long take, that it was going to be in a single shot, and we're going to cover this character through one shot, and that challenge appealed to me.
So that was it seemed to be trending at the time, the one take, presented as one take.
Yes.
Russian Ark, even 1918, relatively recent.
Yeah.
Which is, it's
Unbelievable.
stunning, unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
But there's a lot of CGI going on with that.
Sure.
So that's a big,
Yeah.
That's a big difference. It's not. Could you tell us about the experience of making the film Silent Hill? And also, I understand that
It's actually Silent House.
Silent House. Sorry,
Silent
House.
Hill
Sorry.
is another
Yes.
very successful.
Sorry, excuse me.
No worries.
Also, I understand that you're using a Canon EOS 5D Mark II.
Yes. Well, that was you saw earlier the photo of Igor Martinovich, who was just such an artist, and I think he's gone on to directing things now. But yeah, so it was interesting because it was a remake, the film, and Uruguayan film, and we were, Laura Lau and I were hired, and we co-directed, and I'd say Laura, like we saw the original film, and I was very impressed, but there was some. I didn't really have a take to, like, what can we bring to make, why remake something unless you're going to bring something special? And I think Laura really had an understanding of what to do with it. And so we co-directed, but she really kind of carried the ball on this one. And we'd go, once we had our location, we'd go and we'd run through, and Laura had kind of choreography down in her mind, and we'd literally just together, I'd have the camera and she'd play the actress, and we'd run through the whole thing just to kind of get a sense. And then when Igor came on, of course he took that to a whole nother level.
It has tension. It's so these scenes this BTS is great watching the smaller cameras. But had you had like a full Hollywood large rig and production, it would have been maybe hard to maneuver
Well,
to the
again,
house.
it's astonishing because between Igor's operator and our AC Ludo, another gifted cameraman, often they'd work together and be passing each other the camera, and I think there might even be a photo in here somewhere where there's a scene where Elizabeth Olsen runs out of the basement and across this field and gets into a car, and that's Ludo running in front of her with this camera. And I mean, it's, the work they did was, and if I recall, he was one of these parkour guys. Like, he was a very athletic guy, and without these people's special talents, I don't know how else you would have made the film. So
Interesting. That scene that you're talking about, I think it was my favorite scene, because we see a quick view of her in the weeds in the background, and it was like, what did I just see that? It was a beautiful little.
Well, that's actually a similar technique to what I was saying about the lightning storm in open water, in that we just wanted, like, in this scene, I think the screen is totally black, except Lizzie has a Polaroid camera that she'll click just to light up,
Right.
so you can see what's going on. And so it was like, so some of those earlier photos you saw were like, we kind of really blasted the light to have everything all lit up for those flash moments. And most of the scene, again, was just literally black, just cutting on black and film and cutting to a couple frames of that. So it was a similar editing technique to the lightning storm.
We had a couple more. Oh,
You know,
that migrated.
Yeah, that one shot you just saw of Lizzie, again, it's the actors in Silent House had to do a lot more than just act. Like, they had to do, like, there'd be times where Lizzie would have grab like a piece of foil to make sure the light is bouncing right, or move a curtain, or do this and help light a scene, and kind of work together. And there was a certain choreography put together by her and Igor, our DP, for these, because the film was created with, I don't know, maybe I think 7 20-minute takes, because the 5D can only shoot actually before it overheats to that period of time.
7 minutes, 12 minutes? What was
No, I feel like maybe it was 12 minutes.
Wasn't much.
Yeah, maybe it was 12 minutes. So we were restricted to that, which was fine because that was difficult enough. It would take a whole day to get a 12-minute shot. So
Back when that camera was that low time, we had to sell, camcorders were still being sold, but people wanted to do DSLR and put on
Yes,
the fast
yeah.
lenses and whatnot, but they ran into that wall. Like
Yeah.
doing an interview or something that's longer, it's not ideal.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's all corrected now. Okay, so what advice can you give an aspiring filmmaker? And just a show of hands here out in the audience, who is it a dream of theirs to make a feature type film, a full completed film? Okay, we got a couple of people out here. What advice do you have for those folks?
Well, it's an interesting time. I mean, on one hand, I think what's fantastic is that the technology that's available at a very affordable price, I mean, is astonishing. I mean, it really is astonishing. So you can get very, very high production value. And I think there's a couple key factors. The first one is if you can make something that the more you can control, the less you have to involve. Like, features cost a lot of money. And the more money you need to make that, if you write something that has, huge production value and airplanes and whatnot, it's going to cost a lot of money. And that instantly means, well, now you're not going to be allowed to make this movie unless someone gives you money. And usually that means, well, you're going to have to find some movie stars to cast in that, and it becomes a very long and a very frustrating process. And often, most of the time, even in Hollywood, most of the time, most movies don't get made. Whereas if it's contained, if it's something where it's just a couple actors and you can use what you have, shoot in your own apartment or your own backyard, or use the things that are special that you have, that like only you have, that whatever, your parents grew up somewhere and there's whatever, something in the backyard that's unique, and so write something that's contained, that you don't need outside help, and you can use a very affordable camera. And I think the real key is, really finding. I think the key that makes or breaks everything are really finding very, very good actors, and that might be one of the longest parts of trying on that search for that. So
It seems like gear is easy because when you use those early cameras, the funk that they inherently had played off into it, and it was good. Now you could spend really a minimal amount of money and get quality that looks incredible.
Incredible.
So you're not going to really get that grainy look unless maybe in post or.
Unless you want it, it's absolutely incredible what the production value you can get from the cameras today. So
Which was the David Lynch film that used?
a PD-150. It was I can't remember, but the same camera we use for open water.
I think it was a vampire film, and they used the Play School camera, which recorded.
Oh, that one.
into-
Oh, yeah.
into
I don't.
regular audio tape, like a cassette tape.
Yeah.
Which I think.
But it's David Lynch.
I think that was
It's
in
so great.
90s. Now you couldn't even do something like that. It's really in a
Yeah.
post.
The other thing I'd say is another thing that's important is not to have try not to have all your eggs in one basket, because it's a very tricky business, and the more projects you have and the more scripts and the more things you have helps. And then if something clicks, it's very important to have that next project ready to go, because you get a very short window to really capitalize on that success. And so it's good to have a lot of coals on the fire.
That's a strike while the iron's hot.
Yes.
Interesting. So have some plan B and plan C's when plan A goes successful. So we talked about the equipment, you talked about the actors, and do you have any advice for finding a good actor? Where do you source that? Because a bad actor, that's it. It's going to sink it right off the bat.
Well, it's, we've been very lucky because we have, friendship with wonderful casting directors for years and years and years, Kerry Barton and Paul Schnee, and they've always just been our go-to people. And they found.
What if you don't have a casting director?
I'm saying, so I'm kind of spoiled. I haven't had to go through that search myself. I would say, actually, I was speaking to someone not long ago about this, especially because right now, we're on WGA Writers Guild, and SAG is on strike, and but theater and local theater and wherever you happen to live, and that's where I'd probably go, and that's where I'd probably begin
great piece of advice.
begin that search. Yeah.
Okay, one more. This is going to be a hard one. You're a writer, and you're a damn good writer.
Thank you.
But not everybody's a good writer. Matter of fact, writing I think it's easier to find actors than writers. So how do you deal with if you're making your own film and you're really not a great writer, but you have the passion, you have the equipment because you went to B&H, you're ready to go, you have the know-how, but you don't have a script. What do you advise to get around that? Is there any way to?
It's interesting because I started out wanting to be a film director, and I became a writer out of necessity because I couldn't find scripts that I couldn't find anything, and I just started writing. And of course, the scripts are terrible, and you just kind of learn, and as the years go by. And then when I had some success and I had access to a lot of scripts, even then, they'd be incredibly well written, but I would have to do a rewrite to make them the thing that I could bring to the table that I'd be interested in. So I eventually learned how to write because I had to. And actually, I love it now, but I don't know. I guess it's kind of right up there with how do you find a good actor. It's if you're very determined to do something, then you find a way.
All right. So just to change gears a little bit regarding the current standoff between the studios, writers, and actors, do you wish to address how the new dawn of AI-enhanced CGI and ChatGPT will affect our industry moving forward?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, on one hand, AI can be a wonderful tool, and is right now, in partner, and can help expedite some of the more, tedious aspects of, I'll say writing and editing right at this phase. But it does frighten me that we didn't even know what ChatGPT was a year ago, and you look how quickly it's learning, and it's learning off of the works of other great artists, because it's basically and that it may very well replace, what we do and kind of what everybody does, unless there's some kind of, I don't even know how you would monitor it. But these are the warnings I'm hearing from the people who are the creators of AI. Is that and it just kind of makes perfect sense to me that they can get to a certain point where they learn what they'll know. And this is part of why the writers are on strike, because it might not be as good as what a human can do, but I think it's in some people's minds in the studios, we don't need writers. We can just have an idea, and ChatGPT can write the script, and we can work off that. So, and I'll just say one last thing about it. I think why anything affects us, like why any piece of art, whether it's a photograph or a film or a book, it's because it's a human experience. It's somebody having a particular point of view and understanding of something, and when they put it out there, we're all like, I feel that. I didn't even know I felt that, because it's a connection between human beings. And I don't think AI will ever get there, but who knows?
We're in the dawn of it, so. All right, we're going to talk about what's next for Chris Kentis. You alluded to something a little bit, and I like where it's going.
Well, did I? Well, it's funny because, again, we're on strike now. I was actually supposed to be shooting a film in Thailand right now, adventure film. But I've been working, collaborating on a limited TV series. It's kind of a suspense thriller. And again, because we're on strike, I'm not going to go into talking too much, but I will. The other thing is, many years ago, I was deeply involved with a project based on that Quint story about the USS Indianapolis. Warner Brothers had hired me, and I adapted a book by Doug Stanton, and then was slated to direct a very large picture about that. And it didn't happen, but during that period of time, I had befriended many of the actual survivors of that tragedy and their families, and it really left an impact on me, and I could never let that go. And so another thing I have in the works is a much more scaled down, very affordable version of that film that would lean much more toward the open water kind of idea of kind of going through the point of view of the people that experienced that tragedy as opposed to the whole overview. So.
That changes. How does that? How do you feel about going back to where you really found a lot of success? Something not dramatically different. This is in the water, being nibbled on by sharks. Are you ready to go back to that?
Well, I am, only because there's been so many things. I mean, there's the 3 pictures that were made, but there's been many scripts and many projects in between. And I am kind of ready to revisit that, and because I've never lost my love for that. And again, this would be a passion project that I just can't let go of, and I've found a way to make it very affordably, and I think make a very exciting, entertaining, and hopefully thought-provoking film. So
I'm looking forward to it. Can you hook me up with the premiere?
Got to make it first.
Who knows? Maybe B&H, maybe we can help with that. This has been a great talk. Thank you so much. And I really aspiring filmmakers. If there's any last piece that you want to give to the creators that have this amazing tools that are at their fingertips and affordable, the actors, the scripts, you've given out a lot of wisdom. Anything further you want to?
No, again, I just want to thank you. It's wonderful to be part of this really amazing, what's going on here, and thank B&H. And it really is true. I mean, it's like B&H was the only place to go to get these. And any piece of equipment that comes out, you just go to B&H and they have it, and everybody's so helpful, and it's just like they're a great partner to have.
And it's so stunning how it's changed too, is that a lot of the equipment, not only has it gotten smaller, it's gotten really affordable.
Yes.
And it's like microphones, the Rode microphones,
Yes.
the little clip-on guys, that it's just so much going on that we didn't have access to in the past.
Yes.
And all right, so any questions from the audience that while we have Chris here? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm curious about how you attracted sharks. How did you
Well,
get in the water with that?
I
So the question was how attracting the sharks and getting them to come to you for this.
Well, we worked with Stewart Cove and in the Bahamas, and what we would do is we'd have the actors in the water, and I would also be in the water with a camera, and my partner Laura Lau would be in the boat with the camera, and his people would throw a piece of bait over here, and the actors would be here, and the sharks would gather there, and we'd throw a piece of bait over there, and they'd cross the frame. But what was interesting, again, as I had mentioned earlier, is like I wanted to work with the sharks on the surface. So we kind of figured out this choreography together because they pretty much always just worked with sharks underwater. And so it was a little bit of trial and error, but it was all just bait.
Speaking of bait, what's up with that shark cage? Do you have a shark in the cage?
Well, one day I went to a shark cage because I wanted a shark coming right at the camera, and there's like a window in the cage. I mean, it's your classic shark cage, and this large shark was coming, and he just kept barreling his way into through the window, and he got right
It was a little
in the
shark.
cage with me, and yeah, I mean, it all happened very fast. I mean, it was just instant. I just pushed its head in the corner with the camera, and someone came and got the door open, and another shark swam in. I don't know why they wanted to be in the cage, but at any rate, it was interesting.
They want to get close to you, Chris. They want to get in there. Any other questions for the folks?
Over there. Yeah.
Yes.
So after Open Water comes out, it's a big hit, it's a Sundance, and it's considered a successful movie, do you have this feeling of, oh, I've made it, and now I can do any kind of project I want, and then is there a come down when you find out, oh, it's actually still impossible to find funding for whatever my next thing is?
Okay, so the question is that running off of the success of Open Water, were you able to leverage that into what was next or let it fade away?
Well, yeah, it's a good question, and you do feel that way. I felt that way, and actually there were a million opportunities that came my way and things you get involved with. But it's interesting. It's kind of a long, slow process, and it was a bit of being naive as well. Of like you'd get scripts, and as I was saying before, just assuming you're going to get this perfect script and I'll do that one next, not realizing, well, to really make it something I'd be interested in making is going to require a different kind of effort. And so it is interesting that a lot comes your way, but there is a window and that you need to capitalize. And also when you're working within, I mean, I was very, very fortunate and I had wonderful representation in people, but I just know from friends and other people I've worked with it's just kind of amazing. I won't name names because but it's amazing how people who've done some things where I'm just kind of blown away, and they said, my agent said I have 3 months to capitalize on this, or it all goes away. And And so that's why I think it's important to have some other things ready to go, because if you just kind of know what you want to do next, and you're not kind of counting on something falling in your lap, then that's how you can best capitalize off of those opportunities.
All right. I think we're good. We covered so much, and we're going to keep an eye on you and see what's next. And we wish you a ton of good luck. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
That genre of filmmaking that you've been engaged with is so important, and it just made it accessible. The low budget, and then it blows up. So well done, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Chris
everybody.
Kentis, folks.